Cineverb. Hello, welcome to Cineverb, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria, and today I'm joined by David.
Hello.
And Helen Albee Cottingham.
Hello.
And this week we are discussing, for the first time, 2018 film Hereditary, written and directed by Ari Aster, starring Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Gabriel Bryan, and Millie Shapiro. And here is
I would like to throw in Ann Dowd.
Oh yeah, Ann Dowd. And
MVP.
See, didn't want to add it because I couldn't say and out. And here's the synopsis. A grieving family is haunted by the tragic and disturbing occurrences. As always, we will begin with a spoiler-free review, and then after our ratings, we will dive into a full spoiler discussion. Okay, to spice things up, I'm going to go first this time. So my initial impressions. So I guess I want to say first time I watched this movie was upon release. I saw it theatrically, and it was, at the time, a fantastic experience. Like, I remember very vividly moments in this film that shocked me and moved me in significant ways. I remember, like, specifically feeling like towards the end of the movie, a lot of film goers, like, I could feel the vibe of the entire auditorium. Like, this was very disgusting and gross. And I remember I turned to the person I was watching the movie with at the time. I was like, wow, that was very beautiful. And like the entire theater heard me. And it was like one of the highest moments of embarrassment I've ever felt, because, I mean, this is like Alabama, and this is a film with dark, we'll say satanic undertones. So yeah, it was very uncomfortable. But I'm very happy Helen is here for this podcast, because I finally have, unfortunately, an answer to her question from her introduction episode, which was, have you ever loved a movie and then hated it? And it breaks my heart to say this. This second watch was very, very tough to get through. And my passion for this film has completely fallen. And I don't know. I wanted to discuss it with you, David, and then hear Helen's takes on it as well. But something about this watch really fell, and we'll get into it deeply into the spoilers, but I think that there is a plot device or plot. There's a lot of plot elements of this film that I think really destroy the movie for me, because all the emotional family stuff that this movie does, I think pretty good and pretty great still. I think it all breaks apart because there's like this weird narrative stuff that I don't think adds to anything. I don't think it ties the metaphor, like a lot of people are saying, you know, it's about family and the hereditary things that are passed upon, and that's a lot of the genre stuff. I don't think that mixes well with the actual emotional narrative on this second. Like, I was very bored watching it. So I was going to ask you, David, you know, what were your initial impressions on this rewatch? Did you feel any negative or any other way on this rewatch? Because that, like, I was just so bored watching this movie, and it felt like a puzzle that I already know how it's going to fit together, and there was no interest because it felt like the entire movie was focused on piecing this puzzle together and not the emotion. And that really, I mean, I was like very disappointed and upset and like sad because I had loved this film so much, and now I was like, oh, I don't like this. So what were your impressions and thoughts?
I feel like the thing that brings it over that for me is that the attention to detail in this movie is so on the rewatch, because I had, you know, I've watched it a few times. I watched it just last year, so it was like semi-fresh on my mind. So yeah, I wasn't super invested in the plot anymore because it is a mystery sort of, and once you know the mystery, it's, you know, that kind of gets rid of a lot of the rewatch value. But I don't think that ruins this movie. I think the incredible attention to detail and by the director and the writing and the acting really like makes the rewatch enjoyable to me, because I noticed so many little things that I was like, oh my god, that's wow, he put that little detail in there to foreshadow this, and like this is like a mirror of this, and this detail you would absolutely not notice on the first watch that it's significant, but on the second watch it is. So there were a lot of stuff like that that made it, I would say, just as enjoyable, but just in a more detached way. This for my third viewing.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess to jump off that kind of thread that you still felt that, I guess Helen, you're the one who's watched this for the first time. Like, how did it feel for you watching this film? Was it an enjoyable experience? Were you excited? Were you moved?
It's complicated. I don't know that I can say that I liked it. And I don't know if that's just because I'm not a horror movie person. I was very excited to see this because it's so highly regarded. It's like a film nerd movie. And so there was some things where I was wondering if I was just not picking up on some of the craft because I don't have a trained eye for that sort of thing. And I was really excited to watch this so that I can then compare it to Midsommar next week. And I know that this guy is really famous for being philosophical and subverting tropes and having a unique way of telling stories. And I was super down and excited for all of that. And I don't know, I struggled to relate to the family. It's really interesting to me that seems to be what people say this movie is about. Because, my gosh, what a dysfunctional family they are. What a terrible mother she is. To me. Maybe I'm extra sensitive to the way mothers treat their children, and that's a me problem again. I found myself kind of yelling at the screen a lot and throwing up my hands a lot, which you're not really, like, people are going to suffer in horror movies, so you don't want to completely love them. I just wasn't sure if it was like are we supposed to hate this woman and then cheer for the bad things that happen to her? Are we supposed to love and relate to this woman and be upset for what happens? Like, and disturbed by what's happening to her. Like, I never really could figure out where I landed or how I felt about Toni Collette, which was weird because I love Toni Collette as a human being, like as an actress. I tend to love everything she's in. I think she's an incredible performer. I think she can convey emotion with her face in a way that few people can. And I was like ready for an all-star knock it out of the park kind of performance from her. And I was just mad at her the whole movie. So that was interesting for me. I loved Ann Dowd. She was my favorite character, and she was my favorite performance in the whole movie, which we can also go to in the spoilers. But yeah, generally I just felt like I was missing something. Like maybe something was going over my head about this movie, or maybe it just it's like counter to my taste.
Yeah.
But I was kind of struggling the whole watch, being like, what is it about this that is so revolutionary and so different from other horror movies that impresses horror fans specifically? And what is it about the filmmaking that impresses filmmakers? I just kind of felt at a loss. Like, yes, it was creepy, and yes, the performances were good, and yes, the pacing and the way the story unfolded was unusual, but it didn't blow my mind. Maybe it had been overhyped for me, and I was like expecting it to blow my mind, and then when it didn't, I was more disappointed than maybe I should have been, and I was afraid this was going to happen with this movie. And that's why I had been really against watching it, because when things are really, really hyped and really zeitgeisty, I tend to hate them.
Yeah.
Because it's just too much expectations. And so, yeah, it's like I either have to see popular movies right when they hit or not at all, I feel like, or they're going to just, my brain's just going to be allergic to them. Yeah, it was an interesting roller coaster, but not in the way I think the movie wanted it to be a roller coaster for me, where I was just kind of like frustrated, feeling like, am I stupid? Is this a me problem? Or is this movie not good? Or is this just not my taste? Like, what is happening to me right now? So I mean, I guess it made me feel something. So that's good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to know what, like, for a person who finds this movie extremely important and interesting, what it was that's special. Not in like an accusational way, but just like a help me understand way.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be the fanboy of the episode. Yeah. I don't know. It's okay.
I was going to say, do you want to break down some of the technical aspects for us? Because like I know for a fact you love a lot of the like visuals and the craft, and I do too.
Yeah.
And I think all that stuff still held up, but for me, it was like an emotional breakdown. And I guess that's like one of the things I was going to ask you specifically was you mentioned earlier you can see all the hints and notes of, once you rewatch this movie, it really becomes like a full view of a collage of everything that's going to happen. And that's the part of the movie that made me lose my mind. Like I was, maybe I kind of influenced Helen's perception too, because I was kind of mad texting her while I was watching this movie. I was like, oh my God, I hate this movie and this is horrible. Like I never thought I would hate this movie. I love Ari Aster. And like now, oh my God, what if Midsommar is, because, a lot of people say Midsommar is worse than this movie. So now I'm freaking out about our Midsommar watch. But there was something about the hints and the notes and like, every scene kind of hints at the next scene and the ending, and it's all wrapped up together. It was giving me extreme Jordan Peele vibes. And then it made me realize, like hardcore, like, oh, this guy, and like, again, no offense to Ari Aster, huge fanboy here, but it feels very, like this watch felt very pretentious in a very discomforting way. And I think maybe it's just my personal taste. Like, I don't like when movies, like, I know the creator knows the puzzle. Like, I know they know that. And I don't think it adds anything. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just the taste. So I was going to ask you, like, why do you like it? What moves you about it? And then, some of the technical stuff that is very impressive that he pulled off.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some general thoughts that are floating around my head is, first, this is his directorial debut, which is super impressive, and it's on a lot of people's list of like most impressive directorial debut of all time, perhaps. Could be in the top of that list. Because it seems like it's coming from someone that's, it sounds like from everything that I read that was super prepared for this movie. He had it written a long time ago. It started off as a script about a family drama, and then he added the horror element to it. So I think the family part of it, all that was already super tight. And then I'm impressed that horror element was like an add-on afterwards, because even that to me is like seems very planned out. And they shot it in 32 days, which I'm not super familiar with filmmaking, but that seems like a very, very short amount of time for a movie like this. But it's because he had it all planned out ahead of time. He had like a really detailed shot list for the cinematography. They built the entire house on a soundstage just so that it can be very controlled and like exactly how he wanted it. And I'm like, how did he get the money to do all this? Like for his first movie? I don't know. I don't know the story behind that, but I mean, besides that, man. I don't know, man. I was like, wow, they took a risk on this, and it paid off. But yeah, so I guess I like that from a writing perspective, that it is so planned out. Like I just don't, I think also for just the horror context for Helen, like, which I'm sure you've watched a bunch of horror movies, like horror is it's the genre where there are so many crappy movies out there. It has the most amount of crappy movies for any genre, where you just can watch like hundreds of them and they're all the same, and they're all just so predictable. And so I think it's just that every time a movie like this comes out in the horror genre, it's like a big deal, because it's like there's not many of them that break the ceiling of the average horror movie. So I guess that kind of threw it over the edge of people's expectations a little bit, but also just the general themes of it, like a quote that I found of his where he wanted to make a film about suffering that took suffering seriously. I think that's a really good like foundation for this movie, and for horror movies in general, because anything else is kind of boring, to be honest. Like anything that's just like jump scares, ghosts, something we don't understand, like blah, blah, blah. Like my favorite horror movies are ones that are actually about something serious and universal that everyone has to experience, like actual suffering, pain, death, mental illness, things that are actually frightening to everyone. That's where it's effective. So yeah, I think he actually accomplished that in making this. And then adding the family element, I think it's not as much about family, but on this rewatch, I realized that it's more about fate, just in general, like all the things that we cannot control about life. So I don't know, maybe a lot of it is just, I don't know. That just kind of, that makes it better for me, that it's not just about family. Like it's almost like the whole movie, they're all kind of helpless. They don't really have much say in what ends up happening, any of them. So it is more about fate and just, the being in a situation like that where it's all been planned ahead, like you had no say in it. This is your life. This is your destiny. This is your fate. And I think the ending just wraps that up so nicely and so satisfying. And I haven't even mentioned, like, the music I think is really great. Obviously the acting, like Toni Collette just like knocks it out of the park. And Alex Wolff, I would say too, as second best. So yeah, it's got a lot going for it.
Is Alex Wolff the teenage boy?
Yeah.
He was good.
Son. He's really good.
He played a very doofusy teenage boy. He played a high person very well. He played a scared, upset person really well. And I was like, you know how like teenage boys have a lot of dignity in my experience. So the amount of times he had to break down in sobs was really arresting. Like really, it really added, it really added gravitas to the scenes where he was crying. It was like, whoa, this situation is bad enough to make a super dignified teenage boy start weeping. This must be serious. Like somehow, it's like, oh, let's add teenage boys to horror movies to really circle, underscore, and highlight how fucked up things are, because it certainly made me believe it more somehow to see him break down. As opposed to the other characters. Maybe that's like sexism in society and stuff. Like you expect the mom to freak out, but you don't expect, maybe the brother to take it as hard as he did. I will say his performance was good. Yes.
Yeah. And this movie does like, crying really good and panic, I noticed, just as someone who has anxiety. Like every time they showed, I think mainly those two characters, Toni Collette and Alex Wolff, like when they showed panic, like they were really good. I don't know if it was the directing, like he really directed them to do it realistically, it's scary. Like, I don't know. There's a few scenes with her that I'm like, oh my God, like I'm like concerned for her as a real person. Like she seems like she's having a panic attack. Like she's about to throw up. Like she's someone please help her. So.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said about Alex Wolff, Helen, because he is the one performance that really stood up to this rewatch. Like he is, in my opinion, like the definitive. Honestly, he feels like the main character, like emotionally. In the narrative, I think he has the most emotional weight. Yeah. But often, and I think this is a failure of the movie, it feels way more concerned with like now that you were mentioning that he had written this as a family drama first and then they added the horror elements. I think that's where the whole narrative falls apart for me, because all of the horror stuff I found nearly atrocious. Like I was just bored out of my mind. And I get the Hereditary metaphor, but and I get the fate thing, but it doesn't, the film, the way it's structured feels like an investigation of your past, where I think for this metaphor to work, it should have felt like you were saying, like an inescapable fate. And the movie does not feel to me like an unescapable fate, because you have a character investigating, and I don't want to call her dumb or anything, but I don't believe a lot of the moments with Toni Collette and like her having her realizations and revelations. I'm like, there's no way that a woman of this age would figure this out just now, and like that the whole family would be this huge mystery. Like, I don't know, I didn't buy it this watch. And but back to Alex Wolff, like I really liked his performance. I honestly, like, if I could just like get my hands on this, or like, I don't know, if I could have talked to Ari Aster, like I think Alex Wolff should have been the main character, because in a lot of ways Midsommar feels like what this movie could have been if the Alex Wolff character was the lead, because all the scenes where he's in school and like we're focusing on him and his interactions with other people felt extremely real. It felt grounded and like these are just kids hanging out, or this is how a kid would react to this event. And then I don't know if you felt this at all, David, or if you felt this, Helen, but like a lot of this film, like, yes, Toni Collette is giving it her all, and I don't know if it's the dialogue, I don't know if it's the direction or the tone, but so many of the outbursts that I liked the first time, this time felt very flat, and it felt like I was watching a play in not a good way. Like everything that happens inside the house, I don't know, it just didn't vibe with me. I was gonna ask y'all if y'all felt any of that, or...
Oh, I felt annoyed by all of her dialogue. I felt like this guy doesn't know anything about what it's like to be this person. Like she didn't feel like a real human being at any point. Yes, her performance was incredible. Like, yeah, the times when she was scared, she plays scared very well. The times when she was like having those weird dreams were, I think, my favorite parts of the movie in some ways. But just her as a character existing in this movie, she felt like an actor playing something. She didn't feel like a person. She didn't feel like a human to me.
I feel like
and maybe because she was supposed to be the character that I'm supposed to relate to, and I did not at all. I think it would have been better if she had been a side character, if she had been the clueless mom. Like, your mom kind of feels like a non-person to you when you're a teenager. And I feel like that was the focus, and there was too much focus on her. Is like this non-person, mysterious mom is the center of the movie, and she should not be. Like, I agree with you, Anthony, on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, but I wonder if some of it is because another theme that I noticed, like in this viewing, is that a lot of it's about emotional repression, it seems like, in all of the characters. And then there's moments of like outburst, but like most of it is they're all very repressed. And so I wonder if that was part of it, like, especially because it focuses on her, but also she's like I think at this point in the movie, it's almost, this family's already fallen apart kind of. And so this is almost just the end. This is just the end, the last times where they're pretending to be a family. Maybe that contributes to it a little. I'm just trying to defend it. But yeah, it's already fallen apart. They already kind of are barely a family. And so it does feel their interactions and stuff feel forced. And then there's the weird outbursts. So I don't know. I wonder if that is part of why you felt that way.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to dig into it in the spoilers.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't want to spoil anything, but also she's a victim herself. And so I think it explains a lot about her personality the more you learn about her heredity. Yeah. Heredity. That it makes sense why she's the way she is. I guess I can say no.
Yeah. I'll have to ask you.
I do want to say, Anthony, that I disagree with you about what part of the movie you enjoyed as opposed to the part I enjoyed. I feel like the movie really started an hour in when the horror stuff started. I was kind of bored and frustrated by all the family drama stuff, and I wanted more horror movie stuff. I wanted, I was like, more seances, more implications of what these seances do, like, and how they work, and which ones are fake and which ones are real, and when, like, all those puzzle pieces of, like, the significance of that. I felt like, then I was engaged in the movie when it started to get weird and it started to really fall apart in a, like, something supernatural is happening kind of way.
Yeah.
That's when I became more interested in and excited about the movie. And I was like, all the first hour was a prologue that did not need to be that long and that complicated. Like, we could have just found out about the grief that is at the core of this family in a really quick way. And then had the implication, the massive, like, supernatural level fallout of the grief. And that was interesting to me. And the movie started for me an hour in. And
interesting. Well,
I think the horror arc was more interesting and metaphorical.
Well, Yeah, we need to get into the spoilers of this, but I do agree. I do agree. The first hour, I would have cut that whole thing. Where the movie starts with me is
What?
at a turning point, which is, I think, like 35 minutes in. Like, anything before that could have been cut. I think we could have just started, smash cut into the big scene, and then the movie be about the fallout of that. Because I think it has a false beginning. But we'll get into the spoilers. So before that, I guess, David, what would you rate this film out of 10?
I think when I first saw it, I had it at an 8 out of 10. We watched it last year, bumped it up to a 9 out of 10, and this time I'm going to have to give it I can't think of any reason why I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10. Looking at the other 10 out of 10s that I have, it's yeah, because it's like I think it's a much stronger movie than you guys are portraying it as. I think it will stand the test of time in these movies that I need to rewatch. Like, for instance, The Witch. Like, I kind of put it together with these early A24 movies, horror movies, that is sort of this nice resurgence of smart, well thought out horror movies. And I think this is probably the best example of those. I think it represents sort of a little era in horror, and I think it is a good movie in all respects. So 10 out of 10.
Wow. Okay, well, Helen, what would you give it out of 10?
What did I give Crimes of the Future? Was it a 4?
I'm gonna consult the website.
Because I feel like I want to also give this that. It was like as good as Crimes of the Future.
You gave it a 5.5 is what you gave Crimes of the Future.
Okay, well, we're not supposed to do 0.5s, so 5.
It's a middle of the road, split down the middle movie.
And that could just be my taste. I just don't like horror, like this kind of horror movie with the like grossness and the heaviness and the demoniness. I think maybe it just does not align with my taste, and that's why I want to give it a 5.
Interesting. Okay, well, my rating is, so the first time I watched it, I gave this like a heavy 9. Like, I was searching for a reason not to give it a 10, and I couldn't find one that first time, so I gave it a 9. This rewatch, it has drastically fallen to a 6 out of 10. I think it's all right. I think I would, like, the experience of watching it the second time felt like a 4 out of 10, but I do think the things that work in this film do work for me. The big, huge reveal, the performance by Alex Wolff. I think the cinematography is beautiful. On a technical level, I do not like the digital look. I don't like the color grading. I felt like they just went overboard on the color grading. It just looks way too digital for my taste. I did not like the score. I know you mentioned you did like the score, David, but for some reason, this second time around, I was often disliking the score. The only parts that I liked were the ending, and then I think there's some in the beginning that I liked, but everything in the middle just felt like white noise in a negative way to me. And then, the performances often felt stagey and over-rehearsed, and there was a lot of narrative stuff that I didn't like. One final thing, I guess you would recommend it to all horror fans, David, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. And is there any like specific other movies you think that people would vibe with if they have seen that, they would love this? Like, is there any other? Because I was hearing a lot of people talk about like The Shining and other slow kind of.
It's got some Shining vibe, especially with like a character obsessed with their art, but it doesn't really have anything to do with anything. The Babadook is another one that recently that's of a similar nature, heavy horror movie about grief and family. Relic is one that came out a couple years ago that I think tried to do something similar. It's more about like aging and dementia and turning that into horror. Yeah, The Exorcist, just more of a philosophical horror movie. Obviously, The Witch. Saint Maud, I'll give a shout out.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, see, that might be the thing, because I hated Saint Maud.
Yeah, no, this is a better movie than Saint Maud. And I would put this in The Witch on a higher tier than Saint Maud, but, just similar kind of tone horror movie.
Interesting.
Oh, and
Interesting.
there's a German one, Hagazusa, that I saw a couple years ago. That's like I've never heard anyone else mention it. I don't know how I found it, but it's a really good movie, and it's about like the suffering of a witch, like an actual historical like what it kind of like The Witch, but a totally different vibe. It's like German.
Wow.
It's like a woman that is believed to be a witch being outcast by society, and then like elements of supernatural stuff. But like this movie, it's like, is it real, or is it the most important thing about this movie? Not really.
That will conclude our review portion of Hereditary. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now. And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. And you can check out our website, cineverm.com, where we have written reviews. And you can check out my YouTube channel, A Lonely Critic. If you're into gaming news, check out Headset Chat. And lastly, check out the Movies for Decades podcast, where Helen and her brothers Colin and John discuss films through the decades. But now, let us get to spoilers.
Oh my gosh, we can exhale finally. We can actually talk about this movie.
What is the big thing you want to get off your chest, I guess, Helen?
I don't really, the whole thing. There's so many things. The big reveal, the great, I mean, do y'all want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I'll start out because I think that is the main amazing thing about this film. When the little girl dies, which I didn't say this in the review, but I love the actress Millie Shapiro. I think she did brilliant. I love the little girl. Like, I would adopt her, even though she has some problems. I would take care of her and store all her cut bird heads and stuff, because she seemed very sweet and
that
adorable.
was a premonition, though, right? Like, she doesn't go around cutting birds' heads off. She knew that was gonna happen to her.
Let me get into this, the lore. All right.
Okay.
She is possessed. All right. Her body is a vessel for the demon already. Yeah. Like her grandma made sure that she's a vessel for the demon. So she's kind of like half herself, how I read it, and half the demon influencing her. So yeah, she does a lot of weird things. She's a very weird person because she's only basically half human. She was corrupted by her grandma, and yeah, the cutting off the pigeons' heads is like a just foreshadowing.
But it was a foreshadow. It wasn't a sign that the character knew that was going to happen to her. Because I thought like the way the blue light like zeroes in and flashes by was like a sign of death, kind of. And like she acted like she recognized it. And then the bird hit the window and she went out and cut the head off. And I feel like, I don't know, I took it as a premonition. And like she drew the crown, the bird head with the crown. And then at the end, he gets the crown. So it's like the demon knew that this vessel was going to get decapitated, like it has foresight or something.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I think it got orchestrated. The demon orchestrated it to happen.
Oh, the demon wanted her to get decapitated because he wanted a male body.
Yes, he wanted a male body for sure. And the little book that Toni Collette looks at later in the film, showing the little picture of the demon riding a camel, there's 3 heads on the side of the camel. So it's kind of like it needs, and I don't know if this is said at some other point in the movie, but it needs 3 heads basically. That's the sacrifice that it needs in order to summon it, so that it can kind of transfer itself into its new host. So yeah, there's 3 beheadings in the movie, and it needed all 3, and also it needed to get out of that temporary body. So, and I don't know if it shows a real quick shot of the pole that she gets beheaded on, and it's got the symbol of the demon on it. So it was all orchestrated. It's all fate. That's what the movie's about. It's like inescapable.
Yeah. Oh my
or
gosh.
Is that fate, or is that just really like detailed planning on the cult and the demon's part? Like, if you're real organized, then you can get anything done. It's inspirational.
You could.
They had a list.
I love that you can view that's something I love about this movie is you can view it from the demon's perspective. This is like a triumph. This is a wonderful, uplifting, inspirational movie about just like you said.
If you believe in yourself, you can do anything.
You can switch bodies tomorrow. Well,
He goes
one
on and he
point-
just is a self-help guru.
Oh my god.
He's leading TED Talks.
Satanic self-help guru.
Yeah. TED Talks in hell.
Oh my god. The 7 Habits of a Highly Successful Demon, directed by
Yes.
Ari
Mhm.
Aster.
Yes.
Well, one thing off of that I just thought of that I don't know if this was intentional, but I know it was hinted in the movie that Alex Wolff's character had a lot of resentment because the grandma wanted him to be a girl. No. What? Someone wanted him to be or was it the daughter? They wanted her to be a boy, right?
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, so Alex's character was never desired to be a girl. He was okay as
No.
a dude, right? Okay, so his whole thing
They
was
wanted the male body.
Okay, so his whole thing was she hid him from the grandma because whatever, and then his only resentment side or underlying thing was her mom, sleepwalking, potentially burning them alive and stuff. I guess what did y'all think about the dream stuff? Because you love dreams, and what did you think about that stuff, and what did you gather from that?
Surprisingly, that wasn't really. That was kind of one of my least favorite aspects of the movie, like those little sequences, because it's very horror cliche. Like it's one of those horror cliches that he threw in there. I feel like because he had to make it a genre movie recognizable. So yeah, the little dream sequences with the ants crawling on his head and the mom trying to pull his head off, and I did like the one that actually kind of served to establish more character stuff, which is where she actually has a conversation with him.
That was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, says some really horrible things to him, but it's a really honest, frank conversation where she just straight up tells him what she actually thinks. And
the abortion. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
That
she was like, I tried to miscarry.
She didn't want him. Yeah.
I loved that scene. The way she jerks her hands up to her mouth and can't believe those words just jumped out. Like she almost wants to stuff them back in, and the gasp. Yeah, I thought that conversation, that was the most real, the most honest mother-son conversation in the whole movie. And it was this cartoonish dream.
French kiss.
Yeah,
and the way he reacts in that dream, he's like, "Why are you scared of me?" Like that's an interesting question to ask your mom.
Yeah.
Again, I wish the focus was on Alex Wolff. And then I guess that brings up another point, because we're all writers here. One thing I noticed that I disliked about this movie is that there is a lot of things that happened previous to the start of this movie, and I kind of feel like it's a crux. Like the whole, I had a dream that I, put whatever oil or paint thinner or something on my kids and lit a match. I think that could have been easily written into the script. That could have easily happened in the first 30 minutes of the film. And there was a lot of parts where she's, in that self-help place, or the whatever rehabilitation.
The support group?
Yeah, the support group.
Yeah.
Where she's talking about her mother and talking about her family and talking about her son and talking about the daughter, and all that stuff the second time felt really flat because it just felt like exposition, when I think it could have really easily been added, because we end up seeing a nightmare that was just a nightmare within a nightmare within a nightmare. But that could have just been a real moment. We could have just really got the real thing and never had that exposition, and it would have worked way better. I don't know. What do y'all think about that, writing wise?
I felt like that was all dumb. I was like, paint thinner, lighting a match, I was like, can we have some other kind of traumatic situation? Because that just sounded so melodramatic and over the top and just shock value-y. What's a really disturbing thing she could have done to herself and her kids? And I feel like it would have been more interesting if it's I was strangling him, or I had a knife. Because I feel like I've been around people that sleepwalk, and they're not together enough to pick stuff up and pour it in specific places. They're just kind of blindly staggering around. It would be more they somehow got a knife in their hand. Or it just wouldn't be that detailed and complicated. And super scary and weird, and it just felt like this is just being scary and weird for the sake of scary and weird because this is a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a horror movie. If it was something boring, it's like, what's the point? And then also it fits into her. I mean, she's
an artist.
She makes this little. Yeah, she's an artist. She makes these little miniatures. It's on. It all ties in. And also, I had a question watching it this time of like, was she actually sleepwalking, or I don't know, because she makes it really clear that her family there's a lot of mental illness going on in her family, and also she makes it really clear that she didn't want to have that kid. She's very scared of. That's her whole thing in this movie. She's like stuck in between the generation. She's the awkward middle generation where she figures out what she knows, kind of what. Eventually she learns what her mom was aiming for, and also she wasn't sure about even having kids, and her mom's weird relationship with the kids, and she's just using her for that. And I thought all that was interesting. I don't know. She's like stuck in the middle, and she doesn't really know what to do. Yeah, and maybe that was the part of herself, like, oh God, something horrible is going to happen with these kids. Like I have to cut off this family tree. I've got to end this. So I thought that was cool.
See, like all those points that you bring up, those were all said in an expositionary way. Like I don't think we ever got like real scenes where we saw that. Like specifically the mental illness stuff. Like the second time she's like, yeah, my brother had schizophrenia and my other brother had DID and my grandmother had this and they had that. And then like the sleepwalking. Like I think you could have easily started this movie, cut all that stuff out, and then just had the movie start within the house and she's sleepwalking. We don't know, the viewer. We don't know she's sleepwalking, and like we could integrate the idea that Helen had, like she's walking with a knife into the son's bedroom and then like stabbing beside him or something, and then we just cut to the next day and we're like, whoa, shit, this lady's trying to kill her son, and then it could be revealed, oh, she was sleepwalking, and then it could be revealed like her having a emotional breakdown or anxiety attack. Oh, she has like some mental issues or something's going on. But like I never felt like any of that was real. It was just like lines of dialogue. Specifically, like I think that's where the whole Hereditary thing falls apart, because I don't know, she never feels crazy, or well, not crazy, but she never feels like she has a mental illness of any sort. And it doesn't feel like I don't know, we don't really see any actionable signs of any kind of mental disease in her or her family. It's all just immediately demon stuff, which I think is the boring side of it. Like,
it's like part of it's like, was there any mental illness in her family, or was it all demon stuff?
Okay, so
I don't know. It depends on how you want to look at it.
So that
something I was really hoping would get talked about and never did was like, she mentioned that her mother had DID, and that's not that's a controversial illness anyway, and is kind of a tacky thing to just throw in as like a side note. This character had that. But I was waiting and waiting for it to turn out that the mother didn't have DID, that she just had multiple demons that she would switch between, that she was hosting. And that was the multi-personalities, but she actually had 3 different personalities, because I wanted that whole backstory for the mother, and I never got it. But yeah.
So did you?
And then that was the Hereditary thing, is like this family is just a host hereditarily for demons, and I was like ready for that, and it never happened.
I think it's hinted at. I like that it's all kind of just, it's a variety of hints. Like it's the monologue in the meeting, which I thought was pretty good. Like as far as monologues go, I thought it was really, I mean, obviously because she's a really good actress. I thought it was really cool. It was really drew me in, because that's such a cliche of like meeting scenes, like whatever, Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in a church in a circle. So it's hard to make that kind of scene interesting to me, but her acting made it interesting to me, just as someone who has a lot that she needs to spill, and it just starts tumbling out faster and faster. And I liked that.
It was kind of funny, the silent stare that she got from everyone. That was a good little cut to the crowd of people, like jaws agape, like, they've heard a lot, but this is really a lot. Like, holy shit,
Well,
it was kind of funny.
On the second watch, I realized that, because I don't know if this is 100% accurate. David's seen it more times than me. But everyone in that meeting is a part of the cult because they all show up.
Oh, really?
It's the same actors. Yeah.
I saw Endowed.
I know her. Yeah, was there.
Yeah.
But
And that's why they were all looking like you're talking about, our leader.
that'd be hilarious if that's true. Yeah, like multiple people in there were in the.
Yeah, because
I know the funeral.
Yeah, some of them were in the funeral reception thingy as well because she was like, "There's a lot of people here I don't recognize."
Lot of new faces. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she had her private rituals.
So what did you think about that whole thing? Like, I didn't believe that she had no idea or inclination that her mom was, this Satanist worshiping demon following citizen.
I don't know. She was estranged from her mom for a while, so that kind of adds to.
But they go into the whole thing like that. The mom was taking care of the daughter for multiple years, even breastfeeding the daughter. I mean, I
don't think she actually was. I think she just made that statue because that's how it felt, because the mom wanted to bottle feed her all the time. I think that was like an artistic, emotional expression of like, she felt this invasive when I had my baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like, that's another aspect of the backstory, little hints and stuff that I liked was using the little dioramas. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think it was very long. That's the impression that I got, that it was a very short period of time where right after she was born, where the mom got way too close and then she was like, I'm out of here. So they left. And then it was until the son was born, which there's like lots of years in between there. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I just think she wasn't very close to her mom.
Yeah.
She didn't know about these secret satanic meetings.
And what did y'all think about the husband character? Because he felt very, very flat this time around. Like, I did not understand.
Oh, yeah. He felt like a non-person, which made me really sad because I really like that actor because Coen Brothers Stan here. He's the main character in Miller's Crossing. And I was really happy to see him again in something. And then he was just like cardboard cutout dad character. And I thought that him and Toni Collette's chemistry was just awful. Like... That scene at the very end where she's like begging him to burn the book and she's like gasping like, you're the love of my life, I love you so much. And I'm like, you do? I don't think you do. Like, I didn't believe any second of that. I was like, since when? You've never acted like, you've never shown any affection for him. You've acted like annoyed roommates the entire movie. Like, what is this outpouring of I love you, you're and this like grabbing his face and like crying and like I was like, stop, weird, y'all don't like each other, stop pretending you like each other, this is like emotionally very dissonant and wrong. Like
but they used to years ago, but we just don't get to see any of it, and that's
I never believed them as a couple ever. And he was like a jerk, like he was gaslighting her. I think that all the mental illness stuff about Toni Collette was coming all from him. Like, I think he had just assumed and decided that, well, your mom was crazy, so it's going to manifest in you eventually. So I'm going to treat you like everything you say might be crazy. Like, he had kind of a condescending, like, sweetie, you're having one of your episodes, like, kind of vibe about him all the time. Like, he didn't trust her, and he kind of thought she was hysterical.
I mean, this is after she almost burned the kids alive. But,
so I guess
I think it's like that. It's all after. We're only seeing. It's like it would be like seeing the very end of a really long marriage or something, or relationship, and we're only seeing the very last days or whatever month of a relationship, and it's you'd be like, whoa, how did these people? Why were they ever together in the first place? But it's like. Yeah. I mean, we're only seeing.
Yeah, but I mean, so like, have some art direction, like pictures of them when they were a happy family, or like have them maybe try to snuggle, and then one of them their shoulders tense and the other one kind of gives up. Just have like some kind of indication that they ever had any affection, because the whole family and the way the house was so stark and empty and cold. Yeah, that it just is like there's just zero love in this home. For any of none of them. care at all about each other. And like, I think that the teenage boy even kind of said that at the dinner scene. And I was like, yes, preach. Like, finally someone is saying the thing that I've been thinking this whole movie is this doesn't feel like a family, and it feels so broken and sad, and everybody hates everybody, and nobody wants to be there.
It's all purposeful. That's all.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he was going for. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so it's intentional, yeah, and so it all falls apart, yeah, and I mean, I can see it, like, the puzzle that it built. And it's all, I don't know, it's just part of the, like, unbearableness of the movie is that it never breaks from that tone, like, the whole way, It's so heavy,
But I do think it is, I don't know, even if you're to make a film about the end of something, you do have to show some sort of, like, there's I forgot who it is. It's like it's like the writing quote that I abide by in all my writing. And I think is it Shakespeare? Or maybe it's Homer? Maybe it's, I don't know. It's one of the old, very, very, very old writers. But it's pity, fear, catharsis. Like, those are the three elements of a good story. And if you don't have those three, then everything is worthless. And, like, you have to pity your character to care about them. You have to then fear that something is bad's going to happen to the character. And then the ending has to fulfill some sort of catharsis of an outburst and then the potential for change. And I think this movie is really missing the pity element. Like, the fear is there.
No,
and then
I felt the pity. I didn't feel the fear. I felt really sorry for everyone, but I didn't really care what happened to them. I was these people are miserable and they have awful lives and they hate each other and they're all going to die, and shrug. I'm looking forward to how it happens, but I don't really care if it does or not.
I think the pity is like you have to connect with them pity. Like, I would feel bad if something happened to you or David level of, like, oh no, I care about these people now, and now I have fear that they're about to embark on this journey, and then the catharsis happens when they succeed or fail at that journey.
Yeah, it's hard. I guess I could buy that it's a little harder to connect with any of these people because we just see them at their worst, basically. Yeah. Except for like you're pointing out, Helen, like, Alex Wolff's character is maybe the easiest to connect with. Because he's the youngest. He's the youngest, most relatable character in the movie. Because the daughter's not so relatable. He's just the most normal of them.
I was screaming, somebody take him to therapy, please. Like, this poor kid is so traumatized.
I mean, that's the pity for me is, like, God, near the end, you're just like, oh my God, like, he's going to be the victim. Like, he's the one, all of this. Like, he has to live with the guilt of what happened to his sister, and then deal with all the shit from his family and grandmother that he doesn't even know about. And and then he loses his life.
Well, one scene we need to talk about in detail is the big scene. I don't think we actually, like, dug into it, but the whole setup of that scene with Alex Wolff's character, I want to go get high at this party, and then the mom character played by Toni Collette, and then she is saying, like, well, are you going to take your sister? Have you asked your sister? You should take your sister. And, like, that whole back and forth felt so... That part did feel real to me. And because I've been in families where it's like, oh, you want to go do something? Let me make it the worst version of that for you. Oh, yeah, go, but you can't take the car. Or you have to take this person. Or give me your phone. Like, it's just always dumb stuff. And that felt very relatable. And then, like, him actually going, and then the daughter coming back, and then her immediately being like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. I don't know. And then the mom essentially, like, tripping her into going, and then they go, and then, oh my God, I was going to ask you about the cake thing, too, in specific, because there's no way she did not realize that there was nuts when we got, like, a whole 2-second scene of a whole table full of, like... cashews or something being smashed loudly and violently by teenagers. And then one other thing, there is no way a teenage party of getting stoned and drunk is making a giant cake with nuts. I don't know.
That is
I have never seen any teenagers bake.
Unless it's like got weed butter in it.
Yeah.
then
yeah,
they might make it if it's like special.
Just a random little culinary artist.
These people
there
were
at the party.
very rich. I don't know.
Oh my God. But
yeah,
yeah, I
no-
love that. I loved all the interactions, the moments, the sequences, how it was edited, how it was shot. I loved the sound design of the lead up, the moment, the after moment. So yeah, what did y'all think about that scene? And did anything like stand out to y'all?
I didn't like the mom interaction leading up to it. That was the beginning of me starting to yell at the screen, being super mad at Toni Collette for being a horrible mother. Like, there are ways to thwart your teenage son, I feel like, to get him to not get trashed or to be safe without putting your daughter in danger. Like, what version of reality would it be like a good idea to send your younger daughter to a teenager party? Like, why, A, would you think she would enjoy that or be happy to be included at all?
Yeah.
And two, like, why would you think, I mean, I feel like, yeah, she's going to chaperone him and she's going to, like, make him be more responsible because he's there. Sorry. But, that just seems like using her as a tool and putting her in danger just to guilt trip the son. Like,
Yeah.
it just seemed so irrational. And she was so pushy about it. And she cared not at all for the daughter's feelings or her son's feelings at any point. And I mean, I can see like being worried about your kid going to a party and wanting to do something like, well, okay, how about I drive you and I'll be back to get you at 11 on the dot. So you better be
what I was
waiting
about to
outside or I'm going to
say.
come in.
what
Yeah.
I
Like,
was
or
about to
just, there's like a million ways to do this that isn't putting your daughter in danger. So I was immediately like, fuck you, Toni Collette. You're a terrible mother. Like, from the beginning. You deserve all the bad things that are about to happen to you in this movie. Like, I was like kind of starting to disengage with her as a character then. And then the party, I didn't think a thing about the cake. I was just like, okay, they established she's allergic to nuts. Now she's eating nuts because she's unsupervised. Cool, allergic reaction. That's a good thing to do in a story to add drama. Thumbs up. And now I guess we want to talk about the thing, the derailing thing.
It's such a great sequence. Yeah, like that whole middle. It is like a movie inside a movie. The build up and then the crash and then the aftermath, especially the aftermath. I mean, that is I distinctly remember the first time watching the movie. That is the moment where I was like, okay, this movie just like leaped up above every other horror movie that I can remember watching. Yeah, just because it gets that every reaction afterwards is perfect. Like him just never not looking back there, to see what actually happened because he knows what happened, and like slowly letting his foot off the brake and just kind of coasting away in the silence. Him slowly going to bed, and you can hear like the parents in bed like going like, oh yeah, they're home. Oh good, they're home. Like it's like the relief, but like that it's wrong. And then obviously just hearing her go discover the body in the car is horrifying. And then the jump cut to the head, because it's kind of like you're like, okay, it's it doesn't show it right after it happens, so you're kind of, I was just thinking, okay, they're not going to show it, and then it just suddenly jumps to broad daylight, the head in vivid detail for an uncomfortably long amount of time on that shot, and while simultaneously in the background you can hear her screaming, sobbing, like grief, like horrible grief screams. And then just the sequence after that of shots of her like, crying in the bedroom, and while the husband's trying to comfort her. And also I noticed this viewing, she's in the same position as the cult members are later in the movie at the very end, where they're kind of like bowed forward. I thought that was a cool little mirror. And then the funny, I don't know if you guys got this, but like, I think the first time I saw it, it was funny. It came off as maybe shouldn't have been comedic, but she's like crying and everything in the bedroom, and it transitions perfectly to her crying at the funeral. And it's just the way that it was cut is kind of weird, because it's like continual, and it was kind of humorous in some weird way. But And then there's a shot of like the son standing behind stained glass in the funeral home, and he just looks like a ghost. It's just like his outline behind this like amber colored stained glass. And and there's a perspective shot. Like it's so planned out. It's so perfect. That whole sequence afterwards, and just the mood of it. It's just that there's not anything spoken for a while, and it's just scenes of them standing around the house, and the dad like popping pills, and everyone kind of avoiding each other. So yeah, just that's my rant about that. It's just a perfect sequence in the middle of this movie.
That the thing that made it so revolutionary and like such a subversion of horror movies? Like, was because it happened so early, because it was so emotionally raw, because it had real consequences and it wasn't just a sick kill, brah? Like, is that the thing about this movie that impresses most people?
This is my hot take.
All of that.
I think this is a hot take. This may or may not be true, but I think of it to be true. This movie had one of the best, if not like the best, marketing trailer. I remember at the time this trailer came out, and everyone I knew that didn't even know about movies was doing the like sound everywhere, because it's crazy in the trailer. Like it just keeps clocking, and then you see the girl when she's scary, and like I just remember the whole movie was cemented as, okay, crazy girl gets a demon, and then she's gonna like kill her family, and like that was the vibe that it gave. And then it had like all these like shocking images. Like there was the image of Toni Collette banging her head on the little cellar door, and like that was like it's an insane trailer. I haven't rewatched it, but I remember it was insane, and I remember the hype for this movie was like through the roof. And then I remember like one of the early screenings that like press and like critics got. And they were like, oh my God, this is a revolution. Like, it subverted all expectations. And I think it was the expectation of what this movie was going to be, because, this is kind of early in the, like, horror renaissance kind of thing that was, like, I would say, like, 2016 to, like, 2018. There was, like, this cool sweet spot when, like, A24 got on board after the Blumhouses that was focusing on, like, more artsy horror stuff. And I think it subverted, like, oh, I thought I was just going to get a normal satanic young person film, and then instead I got this like grief stricken kind of film. And I think that, I don't know, in my opinion, that's the thing, was the daughter dying was the big thing that made everyone think, oh, this is actually about how to deal with grief. But I don't know, I still think it kind of falls apart. That whole element falls apart, because after this the whole movie becomes obsessed with okay, where's Payman going to go? And let's set up all this demon stuff and the seance and blah, blah, blah. And is it real? It's not real. Oh, look, why didn't I ever check this box where my grandmother kept all her demon stuff? And, oh, there's a note that says sacrifices. Like, it was all so
How convenient
obvious.
that it's the right sentence that I need to know for the plot is highlighted. Great.
Yeah. And one point that I wanted to bring up, not to spoil Midsommar any, but I was going to tell this to David specifically, is like, I think there's a way to rewrite this movie where you have like a 10-minute scene, and then we jump into this death of the daughter. And I think Midsommar does literally this in such a beautiful, exquisite way, where it sets up the entire crux of the film, and it feels like a little, like, in this movie, this death feels like a little, I don't want to say a music video or a montage, but it feels like a short film, like you were saying. Like, it feels like its own little, like, oh my God, I got a beginning, middle, and end with these characters. And I think if the film was restructured and just abandoned all the grandma stuff, like that could have just been, oh yeah, I did have a grandma. Oh yeah, I haven't thought about my grandma because she was crazy and she wanted to take my daughter away. And then we could have unraveled all this, and you would have cut like 30 minutes off of this film. And I don't know. I'm hoping, like, I'm terrified that Midsommar is not going to hold up, and then I'm just going to cry. I'm going to cry on the podcast. But
that'll be some good tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, I don't know. I get that. I don't know why, because it's not about grief. Like, it's just that's a really good aspect of this movie, that middle part, but it's not really, I mean, the movie is about the family fate aspect of it. So I guess it's just tragic that that girl is just completely just caught up in it, and then you get to learn why that happened. Like that was just the middle of a vortex of all these other things being set up and planned. And yeah. And then the ending is just another, both of those kids.
See,
Both of those kids are got.
That's why the film fell for me, because I thought it was about grief. That is the thing that I think is the most potent and the most powerful. All the family stuff falls apart for me. And I think my mind is like, all right, what's the next best thing is the grief. And then I'm like, oh, this didn't do the grief thing well. And it didn't do, like, I think it does the grief thing better than it does the family thing, just from this one sequence. But I don't know. But I guess
I want to do Ann Dowd appreciation section at some point.
Oh yeah.
Because
let's go for it.
I love her. I watched the first couple seasons of the TV show that became torture porn, Handmaid's Tale. Before it went off the rails. I stopped watching it when it went off the rails. But she's such an awesome villain in that movie. And I feel like she's one of the great underappreciated character actors that can just do anything. And I thought it was really clever how she seemed like this kind of hapless, housewifey grandma type with the makeup and the designer clothes and the awkward overeager hugs and the please call me and please come over and I didn't believe it either. And she was so believable as that kind of frumpy mom person. And then also because it was Ann Dowd, she was also completely believable as the mastermind of the cult that was kind of at the steering wheel of everything the whole time. And yeah, like the successor to the grandmother and the one who, you know, she had to plant the seed, she had to manipulate super gullible Toni Collette into doing the seance so that the demon could get introduced into the house, so that he could get into the son. My eyes were on her every second that she was on screen. I feel like she outacted Toni Collette, which is hard to do. And I was excited every moment. I was interested in her character, like what is her deal? Like I believed her when she was sad about her grandsons, and then that was all a lie. And so like her character was a good actor. Like wow. Like of course a sociopathic like cult leader, demon worshiper, manipulator would be that good. Like I thought she was, for a side character to be so consistent and so well thought out, and to also have an actor that can deliver such a powerful performance, like that's a definite credit to this movie, that like the attention to detail extended to side people.
Everyone, yeah.
To everyone. Yeah. And I think she was the MVP of the movie. I found all the scenes she was in dynamic. I find her a really compelling presence in any movie she's in, because she can just, I saw another like indie movie called The Great and the Small, where she's a hard-boiled detective, and she was really convincing as that too. Like that woman can just do anything. And yeah, I was very excited to see her in this. And yeah, that's my little Ann Dowd appreciation rant over.
One little thing I want to say about that is the moment where she's at the store, and then she's like, "Oh my God, everything's different now. Everything has changed. It's amazing. I can't tell you about it. Okay, I'm gonna tell you about it." And then she like the way she puts her hands to her head and walks back. I was like, she is killing it. This is Oscar level stuff.
And that scene, the way she keeps grabbing Toni Collette's arms, like she's being really aggressive. If you watch her body language, it's hilarious. Like she's super aggressive. Like every time Toni starts to turn away a little bit, like she grabs her forearms and like jerks her back to face her, and she does that several times. And so it's like, if you know what she's doing, it's like, wow, yeah, she's really focused on what she's trying to do, and like keeping her attention, keeping her locked in to the story and interested, and gets her to the apartment and gets her sitting down, and you know, it's interesting. And then the seance scene, damn, like that's such a horror cliche, but like it did it so well. I mean, it's mainly her Toni Collette's acting, like it sells it so well. Just all of her all of her reactions are so good, so realistic. Like, yes, this is how a real person would react to this. Like, yeah, like you would start having a panic attack if any average person. It would be like it's like a God. Who's that author that came up with Cthulhu? It'd be like if you just suddenly just yeah, it's like a Lovecraftian thing. Like all of a sudden your reality would break if you were actually sitting down and witnessing these things, and your child just died, and you're super vulnerable and messed up, and yeah, it's just I love that scene. Another highlight of this movie.
Yeah,
I really liked the seances. It made me wish that the whole movie was about seances because I feel like those were the two most exciting scenes to me, was that one in Ann Dowd's apartment, and then again when she's like desperately trying to convince her family to do it with her, and like, no, we all gotta hold hands and we all gotta hold the cup, and just that was all very fun to watch. How the three of them were all reacting differently to it, and I was like, let's have lots of seances. Let's like get the dad a believer now, and now he wants to do it, and he has someone, and let's have the demon jump from person to person as they do seances. Like, let's really dig into this and have a lot of fun with this, but then the movie didn't.
That would have been cool. Yeah. I do love at the end of the first seance, she's like, make sure your son is there. Make sure your son is there.
Yeah,
your whole family has to be there. And it's like, come on. That should have been a dead giveaway. But
no, but she like the way she's, she's so like traumatized in that moment. She's barely surviving. It's like what I imagine cults do to people, where they just break them down and give them instructions while they're broken down and on the edge of a panic attack. Like she's shoving the instructions into her hands and is like, do this. You got to have the family in the house. You got to do this. Just make sure you do this. And then she does it.
Yeah. That is very true. I was reading a book, I think it was like a year or two ago. I think it's, what is it called? The How to Gain Influence and How to Influence Others or whatever. It's the book that famously inspired Manson. Like he read it in prison, got out of prison, and started a cult. And like the book works. And it's like, that's one of the elements is like, if you find someone who's grief stricken or doesn't know what to do with their life, like you giving them an outline of what to do, like it feels good as a human. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a natural instinctual thing. Like it feels good to be like, oh, I should do this thing tomorrow and do this and this and this and this and involve these people. And yeah, you're right. And then you feel good. And then you come back to that person with, like, you get that serotonin positive rush. And then you're like, oh, this person's good. They're telling me what to do. I'm becoming successful. And yeah, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous book. But the second seance, I like the second seance way more. I liked when she became
oh really?
What's her name? Charlie is the daughter?
Yeah.
Oh,
and she's like, Mom, what's going on, Mom?
Why is everybody scared? Yeah, that was all super cool. That was when I was like really bought in and like really actually spooked. Because actually, I think the weird thing is I was not actually really that scared at any point during this movie. I was occasionally grossed out and like repulsed, but not like, the fun of a horror movie is to be kind of scared, to get that kind of rush of like, yikes, this is really spooky. And that was really the only part where I was getting that like creeped out rush. This was that seance scene.
I think the ghost scenes we haven't mentioned yet, where I thought that was a really effective, like where the first time she sees her mom, just like
that was creepy.
Dark.
Yeah,
that's
again,
how.
If it had leaned harder into that, I would have been happy. I feel like it had dropped a lot of really interesting things and then never picked them back up over and over again.
Yeah, I think it's because
it was like too excited to do too many different things.
Yeah, like I think he was just like, I have to put in these horror cliches, but I want to do them in a more effective way, which he did. But I don't want to focus. I don't want to focus on them. I feel like it was his thinking. Like I want to have them in there. This is a horror movie. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it good. The seance, the ghosts, all that stuff. But like, it's not the focus of the movie. So whatever.
So the focus was Toni Collette slowly going insane / just being a sacrifice to get her son demonified? Like, is
Yeah.
that...
The sins of the
Yeah.
father, getting passed down. I don't know. I just like that kind of like biblical thing of like your ancestors could do things that fate you to a certain, like, you cannot help it. And then if you take it as just a metaphor, like diseases or mental illness, like like your ancestors could pass down something to you that will completely ruin your life and your existence when it starts to develop. And you could not even know that it's like, for instance, let's just say schizophrenia. Like, you could be like the teenage boy, Peter. What's his name? What's his character name? Peter? I don't know.
Peter.
But you could be him, a completely normal kid until, let's say, you're 19 years old, and all of a sudden you start having hallucinations. And
Yeah, that's the age when it usually hits.
Life,
yeah,
and your life falls apart. Like,
Yeah.
that's real, and that's to me, that's like the horror of this movie. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, they put it in a, whatever, the supernatural way, because that's what horror movies are about. But yeah, I still think it's effective because it makes you think about those things. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I do wish the movie would have tackled that further, and like the whole movie, the mystery, instead of it being payment or whatever, transition of the body, it would be like, wait, are these people like having delusions? Do they have DID? Do they have schizophrenia? Is any of this real? And I think if you would have shot this in a very like POV kind of way, like we're seeing what they see, and maybe we don't believe what they're seeing is real because everyone else is like, I didn't see that. You're having a delusion, or you're having a breakdown, blah, blah, blah. And like pitting all these characters against each other. And then at the end, having the whole climax with the demon and being like, oh no, it was real. There were demons. And then it'd be that, I think that would fit the whole Hereditary thing way better versus this whole plan thing.
yeah,
But
the ending, the first time after I saw it, the last scene just like lit my brain on fire, because I was like, I did think about, what if there's nothing supernatural in this movie, or what if that's not, what if if you just took this movie really literally, realistically, and just imagining what would be going through his head at that moment when he's in the treehouse, and because his facial expressions, I was just like, he could still be in there. Like, if he's still in there, how horrifying would this be? Would this be and confusing to be there right now? But his facial expressions all make sense. But it also makes sense if you imagine him. I just could watch that scene two different ways, and his facial expressions make sense both ways. Because you can see the demon kind of like haughty, like, oh yeah, like these people are bowing to me. It's finally happened. Like, hell yeah, I'm the king. But then I also read it as like a super traumatized person, just not being able to react anymore because he's been through so much at that point.
Yeah.
well, I guess
I was going to say,
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say that I feel like this is a great movie to recommend to people that hate ambiguous endings and that want quote unquote answers, because I feel like this movie does actually land somewhere and does actually answer the questions. Like, yes, it was all a cult. It was all a plan. It was all a structure. Like, that's a very satisfying for people that prefer that kind of ending and get mad when there's not. Like, some people, their quarrel with horror movies is that you never see the monster, or you never find out definitively what was going on.
Yeah.
And this movie, you do. You do find out what was going on, and you do see the monster, so to speak. And I kind of prefer movies that the mystery remains intact. I'm in the, kind of David Lynch school, I guess, and John Carpenter, like Halloween, like the original Halloween, like it's all very vague. Like, what happened to him? Where did he go? What even was his deal? Like, so I was like, okay, this was, people that love this movie are people that like capital A answers. And I'm not one of those people, so it's not really for me. But I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
I like capital E emotion. And I don't know. The answer here didn't feel satisfying in any emotional way. And again, I am terrified for Midsommar because that ending felt like a capital E emotion. And now I'm worried it's not going to be I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't like this ending. But yeah, what did you think, David?
Yeah, aren't they really similar? I don't know if we want to spoil Midsommar, but like the endings
No, don't
are
spoil it.
kind
Don't
of
spoil it.
similar. No, I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna
no,
spoil
yeah,
it, but
they are very, very, very identical. This whole movie feels like a bad version of Midsommar to me now.
oh my god,
It
no,
feels
they're
like
different, but
this
yeah.
feels like a rough draft. Like I want to make a movie about again. I think this movie should have been
See,
about
to
grief.
me,
Midsommar is about grief. I think. I don't know.
yeah, to me, now not seeing Midsommar a second time, I've only seen it once, but my impressions in the moment are that what it felt like was that Midsommar was like an unnecessary extension of this movie. Like it was just kind of like similar
Really?
ideas, similar scenes and elements, but extended too far out to where it's unnecessary. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to think
Wow.
that the second time, but I
Yeah.
just remember thinking that.
Interesting. Watch you give
But
Midsommar a 6, and I'm gonna give it a 10,
yeah,
and then Helen
don't
will
know.
give it a 5. So she'll be flatline. And she's gonna be like, "No, this guy just kind of sucks. Like, I don't know what y'all think."
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And I mean, it's not like, and I've been saying over and over, I'm not a horror movie person, but there are horror movies that I truly love, like It Follows and
Oh God, I love
like
that
I just
movie.
said, and Halloween and The Thing and I mean and The Shining, but I feel like this movie for some reason compared to those rang more hollow. But maybe it's just because I was missing like the like those movies all kind of have traditional jump scenes and kind of traditional suspense structure, and maybe I just like that. And uh yeah, maybe I have a fairly simple brain chemistry when it comes to horror. I just like the ride. I like to be scared. And this movie wasn't as much of a ride and wasn't scary in a traditional sense, but in kind of a think about it later sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Well,
I think that's my bias is just like, yeah, it's got to have something like horrifying about it. I don't know. Yeah, something like that. That's actually real life horrifying.
yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm trying to think. I like all those movies that you mentioned, but well, not, I don't know. The Thing for sure, but I don't know about Halloween or It Follows. Like they're okay, but
What? You don't like It Follows? Oh my God. Oh my God. We
it's
have
okay,
issues.
but I just can't. Yeah, I just
I
can't
feel like
remember
it's
it
my
being like,
favorite horror movie of all
I,
time.
w-
But
I would also
Really?
I would also second that. I think it's the best horror
We're
movie
gonna
I've
have
ever
to
seen.
we're gonna have to
Yeah.
throw that on the list.
Yeah.
sure.
yeah.
That'll be next year. Well, we have to, before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the whole finale because I think that is the horror highlight. What did y'all think about, the beginning of the breakdown with the husband catching on fire instead of her, and then Tony Collette being like a spider monkey in the shadows crawling around, and then her cutting her head off. What did y'all think about that like whole ending scene? Did it do anything for y'all?
I wasn't
wanna hear
creeped out by the
Helen's
spider
thoughts.
monkey stuff. That was just kind of your typical creepy for creepy's sake. I did think it was really cool how he caught fire instead of her. It was like the demon messing with her. Like, what will hurt her the most? Like, what will cause her to suffer the most is not to catch her on fire, but to catch him on fire. It's like she shouldn't have said that. I love you. I'm sorry. She should have been like, fuck you. And then she would
Demon
have
was
caught
like,
fire
"Bet."
and died. Yeah, the demon did that to hurt her specifically. And that seemed really like it made the presence of the demon feel very real and alive and in the room and very scary and powerful. Like, I'm paying attention and I know exactly how to torture you. And so here you go. I'm burning your husband. So that was cool. I liked that. And then her sawing her head off. Yeah, that was super gross. How it was like slow and then fast, like very, very visceral. Yeah, she was scary. It was creepy. It was weird. I wonder if that was fun to play or if it was really annoying being up on wires like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what did you think about the scene, David? Did you like that this second time around too?
I liked my favorite part of that is the moment, Yeah, where it breaks her. That's by killing the husband. That is the breaking point, and that's the moment where the demon is completely possesses her.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And that perfect like moment of a close up of her face, like in the firelight, where she's horrifying expression and then immediately just deadpan expression. That was really scary. She does.
Damn,
those
I
faces
really love
well.
that guy.
Yeah.
He caught fire.
I mean, and that was such a classic Toni Collette moment because I've seen the TV show United States of Terror where she plays a person with DID and she can do those 1 second changes into a different entire demeanor and body language really, really well. And
Yeah.
so to see her do that was like, hey.
And her face is just naturally scary to me for some reason. Like I remember in The Shining, or not The Shining, The Sixth Sense. She's what I remember her from that movie the most because of her face. Like her face is scary in that movie, and I don't know why. Like her interactions with the son in The Sixth. Have y'all seen The Sixth Sense?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. It's like
young. Yeah.
I never noticed that about her, though.
Yes, I always remembered that about that movie. Is her face is scary. Her reactions to her son seeing ghosts is scary. Something about her big eyes and big face is scary. So she was.
I feel like
for this movie.
I had like sympathetic embarrassment for the son for that movie. Like Toni Collette would react so horribly that he then felt like he kind of needed to comfort and parent her a little bit. Like she seemed like a gigantic child in that movie. And the stress I felt for her reactions was oh no, let's diffuse this. Oh no, she's making it about her. Which again, great acting. Yeah. Anyway,
for sure.
digression.
Yeah, I like how they set up even the piano wire that she cuts her neck off with. Head off, you see the piano knocked over. Like every single little detail is set up in this movie. So I love that about it. Everything is explained, which I totally get that's not. Some people do not like that, but yeah, everything is explained.
Yeah. So, is there any other major points y'all want to bring up before I ask the big canon question?
I'm good.
Oh, the school scene. We didn't talk about that, but I absolutely love. That's another highlight that I highlighted. That scene.
Yeah,
I just love that where he gets possessed briefly in school. That is so horrifying. It's a perfect example of the thing that Ari Aster kind of has brought back, which is daytime horror, where something can be really scary even in a brightly lit room in the middle of the day, surrounded by people. Yeah, Midsommar. I know. Yeah. I'll give credit. Yeah. But yeah. I think that scene is like a nice little start to that. And the weird, the just uncanny expression on his face that looks like the demon is like kind of invisible hands are like pulling his face in two different directions is just perfect. I've never seen that in any other horror movie. I love it. The way he does his hand in the air is it's like the teacher thinks he's raising his hand, but it's also really creepy as if someone is like grabbing his hand and yanking it up. And then also in the book of Payman, he has a staff where there's a hand that's in that exact shape. And then in the last scene, the mannequin is holding a staff with the hand in that shape. So that's like a sign of that demon. But I didn't notice that until this time around. But yeah, and then just slamming his face into the desk, which apparently dislocated his jaw in real life.
So
he had, it's just and then the way he jumps out of the desk and like falls on the floor screaming. Oh my god. Just great. Perfect. The way that scene is edited is great. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Loved his performance. Yeah, there was he had talked in an interview saying that he wanted to actually break his nose. Like he just wanted to do it for real once and get it on camera. Yeah. And then Ari was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to put foam. And then they put foam in the middle of the desk where his nose, because he has kind of a bigger nose, so his nose would, get impressed in the foam. But then the top and the bottom was still hard. So he slammed his head, thinking the whole thing was foam. And then that's the part that, dislocated his jaw. And I was like, damn, that would suck. Can you imagine figuring that out? Like, why wouldn't you double check it? But I don't know. I guess he was like method and stuff. But yeah, his performance was amazing. So I wonder if that scream, because he like slams and then he backs up and he falls out of his chair and he's screaming. I wonder if that scream was supported by his jaw actually being dislocated and hurting very, very bad.
Yeah, who knows? I love also there's a really, you very briefly for like a split second see a zoom out of the classroom and there's one kid just filming him on his phone. I like that.
Nice.
It's just like, wow, really? But that probably would happen. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it is time for the big question. I guess I'll ask you first, David, because I have some assumptions. Is this either in your personal canon, or are you recommending it for Cineverm canon?
Yeah, I'd say both, but I think it's just weird because I have very few movies where this soon I would even consider it being in canon because it's only 4 years old. But I really do feel like over time it will continue to stand out from the majority of horror movies. And so I think it will continue to be more prominent and be canon. Yeah.
Awesome. So, Helen, would you vote for it for canon?
No,
right.
which
No.
is sad for the Cineverm canon, I guess. But I feel like this movie's kind of on hard mode. Like, I feel like you have to be a deep film person to really get and appreciate it. And so I don't know if the canon should be movies on hard mode to this specific extent. And I don't know, like, it's also very specific to horror fans and like, yeah, because I'm like struggling to think who even I would recommend this to.
Yeah.
Except for like my horror movie nerd friend. Yeah, I feel like it's very niche, very, very specific. Its art is a very specific taste. And yes, it could inspire a love of film in a person with that very specific taste.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's canon.
Yeah. I think of canon as like, someone who wants to deep dive into movies. And so you would give them this list and it would be ordered in like, maybe you would start with the classic horror movies first.
Yeah, because you like need
nice
that
sampling.
foundation. Yeah, you just need so many, there's just so many prerequisites to this movie. And I feel like I didn't have all the prerequisites to really understand. Like in a curriculum of horror movies, this is like towards the end of the year is when you watch this. And only then do you appreciate it. And so it's like if a separate horror movie canon existed, then it would go in that. But I don't know if it needs to go in like general all movies canon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also will vote no, unfortunately. I have a new rule, actually, that I came up with, is that I'm not going to vote for anything into the canon unless I give it a 9 out of 10. Because I think...
Does that mean you're retracting some things?
Yeah, maybe. I need to go back and look.
Uh-oh.
We'll do that on episode 100 when we do a canon update. I was thinking we'd have, like, y'all compile a list of what y'all want to submit. Y'all compile a list of things y'all think shouldn't belong. And then we can all just, like, debate about what's there, what should stay, what should come on board. But yeah, like, I think a 9 out of 10 because, like, I think I give 9 out of 10s for a movie that I think hits all the marks. And I do think this film, in my opinion, falters in the writing. I just think it could have been way stronger, even with the ideas that it was trying to accomplish. And I think there's other movies that feel very similar that have done this better, specifically Midsommar. But I don't know. Maybe Midsommar will not hold up, and then I don't know. My life will be ruined.
Your whole world will crumble.
Yeah. My entire film personality will cease to exist.
Oh, no.
But yeah.
This is a question we don't want to talk about for a long time, but just like, I'm curious, like, when you're evaluating a movie, do you compare it to all of the other movies that you've seen, or do you feel like you look at a movie just like in isolation, like how it made you feel during the viewing?
So
Both.
for me, you can go first.
No, I mean, but really both is just the simple answer. Like, of course, I'm looking for a feeling and looking for an insight and looking for just, yeah, I'm looking to connect to it, of course. And I can take a movie as an individual. I have been told by my brothers that I'm a little bit bad about not taking movies as an individual. Like, just let it wash over you and stop trying to think about bigger picture stuff while you're watching it. So maybe I have a little bit of a problem with that. But I don't know if I'm like consciously comparing it to things in the moment either. That's a after it's over thing.
Yeah, even after it's over,
Yeah.
I'm saying like after it's over, if you're like, okay, well, I guess this is superficial, but like if you were thinking of a when you're thinking of your 10, whatever the number out of 10 is going to be, or like how you think of the movie's greatness, like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. So for me, I'm hardcore in the other direction, or at least I try to be, is everything is individual. So like, even like Eraserhead, if I were to compare Eraserhead to this movie, I think I would put this movie over Eraserhead. But what I try to do is like, all right, what do I think this movie wanted to do? And then I compare it to itself, or I try to compare it to itself. And like, I think Eraserhead was a 7 out of 10. And what I think he was aiming for, I think he could have got deeper and more, intrinsic into the details or the narrative or whatever. And in this, yeah, I go with a 6 out of 10 because I think, I don't know, I think the themes do not resonate. Even if it's the family theme, I think it falters. If it's the grief theme, I think it falters, and other elements. Because I think I gave like Elvis a 6 out of 10, and that movie was totally aiming to be an enjoyable biopic about a musician, and these have the same ratings. But I think technically these films are on two completely different. They're two completely different forms of art, because Elvis is like a mind-numbingly, frantically edited, on cocaine kind of film, where this is way sobering and slow and just a whole different vibe. So for me, it's totally independent. It's what I think the film wanted to give me, and then what I think it failed in doing and achieving those actual elements that I think. And that's where it could be the subjectiveness in my part, is like, maybe I'm misreading this film. Maybe I don't understand what he was aiming for. But from what I gather, it's either the family or grief, and both of those things, in my opinion, are what fail in my perspective. But what about you? Are you individual, or you compare it to other things? Or?
I don't know. I think the thing that I've been thinking about lately is that there's no perfect film, and so it's kind of like, I'm like, okay, I think I compare it to all other films. Like I think it's kind of like when you realize that the average intelligence is probably lower than you think for people. It's the same for movies. Like, the average movie is really bad. Like, if you just randomly picked a movie, like if you just went on like a streaming service and literally just closed your eyes and picked a random movie, it's probably going to be pretty bad. So I guess recently I've been thinking about that. It's like, how do we compare movies? And yeah, I think my in a way, like, I appreciate movies more, like the good ones, because it's like, yeah, there's so much crap out there. And but then also, yeah, there's no perfect movies. So I feel like I've been a little easier on movies lately. Like, yeah, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. So I kind of have to compare this to all the other movies that exist. And I guess you kind of have to narrow it down to genre too. Like you're saying, like, what was the movie trying to do? Did it do it well? And that's an aspect of it. But then also just, did any movie do it better? And if not, then I put it near the top of the pile. But yeah, it's hard. It's a complex problem.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
But I'm just like, I can't think of another movie that does this specific thing better, I guess, is why whenever I put a movie in canon, I'm like, okay, this genre, this mood, can I think of a better example? No,
well,
I can't. So
a lot of reviewers I heard kept mentioning The Shining. That I haven't seen The Shining, but I hear it is about like repression and false communication and a guy in a house or a hotel.
Yeah, dysfunctional family.
Yeah, dysfunctional family, and then the things that are said that aren't said, and then the things that aren't said that are said, and blah, 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 blah. But awesome. I think that is going to conclude this episode of Cineverm. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review or rating with your thoughts or comments on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.
Cineverse.